My name is Hubby and I'm 38 years old. I have a husband named Almond. He's the eldest of 3 brothers, both of whom are married and have 1 child each. Almond's younger brothers Alexander and Alexis are also very kind and good people. Their wives are both friendly and lovely. Lately, I've been hearing a lot about trouble between my brothers-in-law, but I have nothing to do with such things. I'm blessed with great sisters-in-law and we get along well. But there is one problem. It's Almond's mother, my mother-in-law. When we got married, there was no problem at all. My easygoing and kind-hearted mother-in-law, who had a cute smile, was also kind to me. I thought I was lucky to have such a wonderful mother-in-law. My father-in-law, who has passed away now, was also a very kind person when I married Almond. I remember thinking how lucky I was to marry someone and become a part of such a lovely family. But a few years after our marriage, my younger brother-in-law Alexander and Alexis got married, and soon after, my sisters-in-law became pregnant. That's when my mother-in-law's attitude towards me started to change. At first, it was just a small thing. Almond is the eldest son, so we lived in an apartment near his parents' house and visited them regularly. One day, I wasn't served tea anymore. At that time, my father-in-law had already passed away, so I thought my mother-in-law had just forgotten. I asked her, "Mother-in-law, may I have some tea?" "Don't ask me everything. Think for yourself." I had never been spoken to like that by my mother-in-law before, and I was so surprised and shocked that my voice trembled when I said, "I'm sorry." Looking back, this might have been the beginning of it all. After that, my mother-in-law blamed me for not being able to have children, and began to bully me. Of course, I didn't say anything to my husband. In fact, it seemed like I was spoiling him more than ever before. My husband himself was happy to have his mother's support, so he completely ignored the fact that I was being bullied so badly. Days like that continued for several years until one day, we celebrated the 4th birthday of my second son Alexander's daughter, Amelia, at my in-laws' house. Everyone gathered to have a birthday party. My husband and I bought a gift and headed to my in-laws' house by car. When we arrived, almost everyone was already there. "You are late. Is everything okay?" "I'm sorry, mother-in-law. The road was congested." "I wasn't asking you. You are always slow in getting ready. Don't trouble Almond since putting on makeup doesn't make much of a difference anyway." She said that to me. Almond saw how she treated me, but as usual he didn't try to help me and quickly went inside. It would be nice if he could say something to his mother on my behalf. I followed my husband into the living room with the vain hope that things might turn out differently. By the time we arrived, everyone was already there, including Amelia, my niece, and the star of the day. "Aunt Abby!" She ran over to me with a big smile on her face. "Happy birthday!" I said to her. "Thank you for coming!" She replied with an innocent smile, and I felt my heart lighten. But then, my mother-in-law, sensing the joyous atmosphere, decided to put a damper on things. "Stop chatting and help with the preparations already." She said to me in a tone that only I could hear. I'm sorry, I muttered quietly before heading towards the kitchen. There I found Allison, Amelia's mother, and my sister-in-law. Allison, sorry I'm late. I'll help too, I said to her. We just ordered sushi for today, so all you need to do is prepare the chopsticks and plates. I just finished, so please take it easy, sister-in-law. I thought there might be a lot of cooking and carrying to do, but apparently not. My mother-in-law was just unhappy that I was having a good time chatting with Amelia. Allison and I carried small plates and chopsticks to the tables and set them for each person. The sushi has arrived. Today is Amelia's birthday, so I splurged a bit. We put the sushi on each table and everything was ready. Everyone started to sit down as my husband Armand took the seat designated by my mother-in-law. When I tried to sit next to him, Abby, wait! Alexander is supposed to sit next to Armando, so you can't sit there. Then where can I sit? I asked, but was ignored. I ended up just standing there like a pole. After a while, my mother-in-law said, Well, shall we begin? But I still hadn't sat down, and there were no more seats with sushi left for me. Excuse me, mother-in-law, where should I sit? Oh, I completely forgot about you. Just sit wherever there's an empty seat. I sat in the seat at the far end, but there were only small plates and chopsticks there. There was no sushi. I had a bad feeling, but I mustered up the courage to ask my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law, there seems to be one piece of sushi missing. Oh dear, I must have miscounted the number of people. I'm sorry, Abby. Would you like some bread instead? My mother-in-law said with a smile. Bread? There's some leftover bread from last night in the kitchen. That's what she said. I was really confused, but my mother-in-law didn't seem to care and started saying, Let's eat. Everyone else seemed confused too, but my husband Armand followed my mother-in-law's lead and started eating the sushi. I reluctantly started eating my bread. Then, Allison, who was sitting next to me, whispered, Abby, let's split it in half. But I'm sorry. It's alright, it's not fair that you don't have any. Besides, I won't be able to finish it all by myself anyway. Thank you. Wait a minute. What are you doing? Allison, you are still young and want a second child, right? Then you have to eat a lot. She stopped me from getting sushi from Allison. No, but mother-in-law, Abby's portion. Although Allison was worried about me. It's alright, Abby doesn't want any children anyway. She said so with a smile. Watching my reaction, Allison found herself in a difficult position and I felt sorry for her too. I'm sorry, Allison. I'm okay. So I'll just take the fillings. Thank you very much. Although Allison seemed to want to say something with a pained expression, I pretended not to notice and started eating bread. I knew how miserable I was being. The only one eating bread at sushi a happy occasion, but I couldn't brag since I wasn't in a position to do so. So I endured and ate the bread. After cleaning up, it was time to give Amelia her present. I had bought something she had been wanting for a while. When I tried to give it to her, Armand snatched it away and gave it to Amelia instead. My mother-in-law was giggling again as he watched. Even though I had gone to buy the present and paid for it myself. "Thank you!" She immediately began opening the wrapping paper and, upon seeing the contents, exclaimed, "Wow!" before running towards me with joy. "Abby, this is the one! I told you! I want it! Thank you for remembering!" She said that to me, but my mother-in-law quickly reported, "Amelia, that's not from Abby. Armand bought it for you." However, Amelia insisted, "No, I told Abby I wanted this. Aunt wouldn't know. Grandma's so weird." She repeatedly expressed her gratitude towards me. Although her words made me feel relieved, not everyone was pleased, specifically my husband and my mother-in-law. Throughout the conversation, they glared at Amelia every time she thanked me. Ignoring their hostility, I continued chatting with Amelia, but then my mother-in-law interrupted us. "Let's have a cake now. Abby, could you bring it over?" I had no choice but to get up and say, "Let's talk later, Amelia." Abby carried the dish and the fork designed by her mother-in-law, along with a knife for cutting the cake. The cake that was brought out was magnificent, and it turned out to be from a famous store. Then, her husband said, "Mom, I'll pay for the cake." He said this without even consulting Abby. Well, Abby had bought a gift for Amelia, so it was only natural that he should do something like this. As Abby saw this, her husband approached her and whispered softly, "Can you pay for it first? I don't have any cash in my wallet today." Abby thought, "Is he kidding me?" But it was too late. Once he had already said it, her mother-in-law whispered the amount to her, and Abby reluctantly took out the money from her wallet and paid. Her mother-in-law began cutting the cake and distributing it in order. "Did everyone get their cake? Shall we begin?" That's how my mother-in-law addressed us. Sigh, here we go again. I had a feeling this would happen, but as I suspected, there's no enough cake for me. There's my mother-in-law, my husband, Alexander, Allison, Amelia, and then the third son who joined us today, Alexis. The cake was cut into 6 equal pieces. Allison noticed that there wasn't enough cake for me and immediately spoke up. "Mother-in-law, Abby doesn't have a piece of cake." But my mother-in-law just laughed and said, "It's okay. Abby could stand to lose a few pounds. Besides, we went through the trouble of cutting it so nicely into 6 pieces. I can't be bothered to cut it again." Allison looked uncomfortable and muttered, but I reassured her, "It's okay, I'm fine. It's Amelia's birthday, so let's enjoy the cake without worrying about me." But honestly, I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to scream at my mother-in-law and my husband, but it's my niece's birthday, and I didn't want to ruin the mood. But I couldn't stand being there any longer, so I said, "Excuse me, I'm going to head home now." And I left by myself. Of course, my husband didn't offer to come with me. I'm driving home, so you can take the bus. I returned home by bus, as instructed. A few hours later, my husband returned home in a good mood. I was at my wits' end with today's event, so I asked my husband to do something about it. However, Almond just sneered and said, "You worry too much. You can't live life like this." I replied, "I didn't have any sushi or cake, and yet Almond didn't say anything either." Then he said, "Didn't Mom just say it was a small mistake? It's just sushi and a cake, don't be cheap." I was hurt by his words. Eventually, I locked myself in my room with an attitude that suggested I was the only one to blame. And we didn't even attempt to resolve the issue through discussion. I have always been patient, but I was reaching my limit. For the first time, I seriously considered divorce and realized that our relationship had reached its limit. 1 week later, there was going to be a fireworks festival nearby, and my husband, my mother-in-law, Alexander, Avison, and Amelia invited me to go with me. I didn't really want to be in the same place as my husband and my mother-in-law after what happened on Amelia's birthday, so I politely declined. But then Amelia said, "I don't want to go if Abby is not coming." I reluctantly agreed to join them. We gathered a little before the fireworks started and decided to enjoy the food stalls until then. I didn't have much on an appetite, so I just watched. But when Amelia spotted the food stall, "I want some fried chicken." Suddenly, a group of men with cameras approached us and said, "Excuse me, may we talk to you?" They were from a TV station and were broadcasting live coverage of the fireworks festival. It was a famous news program that even I knew about. They said they wanted to film our happy family, including Amelia, and everyone started getting excited. Since my husband, my mother-in-law, and even Alexander agreed, the crew immediately began asking Amelia questions as she chomped on her fried chicken. "Those fried chicken look delicious. Are they good?" "Yeah, they are tasty," Amelia responds with a smile. "But there are so many of them. Can you finish them all by yourself?" To the reporter's tasting question, Amelia answers while taking my hand, "I'm giving the rest to Mom and Abby." "Abby? It was my birthday the other day, but she couldn't have any cake. Grandma is always mean to Abby. So today, I decided to give some to Abby instead." Amelia beams at me as she speaks. "Is that so?" Looking uncomfortable, the reporter tried to keep the conversation going with a forced smile. "My grandmother is very mean. On my birthday, everyone was eating sushi except for Abby. She only got bread. It was very cruel." Hearing this, the staff of the show thought things had gone far enough and quickly wrapped up the interview before leaving to go somewhere else. Of course, Amelia meant no harm. She didn't fully understand how live broadcasting worked and was just trying to protect me. Soon after, messages started pouring into my mother-in-law from people who had watched the broadcast. "How could you only give bread to your daughter-in-law? That's just terrible. Poor thing." I thought, "You said you had a good relationship with your daughter-in-law, but It looks like you were just booing her. Neighbors and relatives were furious, one after another. Eventually, my mother-in-law and husband left early, leaving me to enjoy the fireworks display with Amelia's family from the bottom of my heart. A few days later, I decided to have a discussion with my husband and my mother-in-law at their home. When I told them that I wanted a divorce, "Please reconsider," my husband said. "No, that's not acceptable. I want to allow a divorce," shouted my mother-in-law. However, it was already proven by Allison and others that I had suffered from bullying from my mother-in-law and that my husband had never helped me. When I told them this, both of them turned pale and looked down. "You should live with your mother, who loves you more than me, right, Mama's boy?" I smiled and said my goodbyes to my in-law. Since my husband seemed resigned to the divorce, he readily agreed, and it went through without incident. Now I live alone in an apartment near my workplace. My ex-husband and I lived in an apartment together before, but I paid for 80% of the rent, so he couldn't afford to stay there and ended up moving back in with his mother. Since then, Amelia has refused to see her grandmother and never returned home. On the other hand, I still regularly meet with Amelia's family and maintain our relationships. "Abby, you have to celebrate my birthday with us next year too." When Amelia said that, I couldn't help but look forward to celebrating her birthday next year.